You stupid fuck, don't you dare! Don't even think about it!
Whenever you finish a Yakuza or Like a Dragon game, one of the final aspects that sticks out is that final, climactic boss battle. It's the culmination of an individual entry's gameplay and story coming together in a beautiful climax. Even if a game has multiple final bosses for every playable character, it's still true that everything comes together, in some way at least. And for Majima Goro himself, his final bosses in particular are an utter highlight. Now, why is that? Well, let's first compare the other titular characters so we can better understand Majima's antagonist. And if you don't let me do that, then you better drink some alcohol so you're in a better mood, buddy. Anyway, Kiryu's boss battles typically end in a big confrontation with an antagonist who directly parallels his dragon Irizumi. Think of it as ways for Kiryu to re-evaluate and strengthen his genuine resolve. Then for Ichiban, his antagonists represent a complete opposite to his way of life. Whereas Ichiban is a guy who can see the good in anyone while his foes only see the worst. In other words, these final foes for Ichiban don't need Irizumis and instead represent overwhelming odds, some kind of idea that threaten the world, and so Ichiban must stop them and, well, level up in the process. Enter Majima, a mixture of the Kiryu and Ichiban approach. Perhaps this is all unintentionally or on purpose, but I wouldn't put it past the RGG team to collectively think this up. Of course, Majima predates Ichiban as a character, and Majima has only like 1/4 of the playable games Kiryu has, but let me explain. Majima's final bosses represent the total antithesis to him, as it is with Ichiban's final bosses, while simultaneously being obstacles that Majima himself must overcome in a true, quote-unquote, man versus man fashion, as it is with Kiryu's games. And of course, the distinction of Majima is all his final bosses and the main continuity are weapon-based masters, since Majima himself is almost always seen with his demon fire dagger. Even if you started with Yakuza 0, by this point you know Majima as the guy who stabs people mostly in gameplay. And Majima is a guy with layers, like an onion, hinted at since the original Yakuza 1 and 2. The crazy moments he has in those games give off a feeling of history that eats away at him, giving him both strength and melancholy alike. So, let's now discuss Majima's 3 final bosses, excluding Dead Souls since I've yet to play that game, but I really want to. First up is Lao Gui. Now, Lao Gui is the definition of a villain you want to beat the diabolical stuffing out of. He may have almost no personality or soap opera villain monologues, yet he works as a pure bodyguard embodiment of Dojima Sohei's schemes throughout Yakuza 0's plot. He put Makoto in the hospital, riddled Kazi with a machine gun kiss, and wiped out the hidden goat that was Awano. Suffice to say, by the time Lao Gui's cinematic and climatic boss battle arrives, it's up to you as Majima to combat his array of weapon skill with your very own. And what an array of deadly weapons Lao Gui arrives with, man! His first 2 phases involve weapons, of course, with the first having these nasty claw needle things, kinda goes Shredder mode, and then a second phase wielding a Type 67 pistol and a Lotus Clan broadsword. Lastly, his final phase consists of just classic unarmed combat, but it's pretty good, and he has a cool looking heat aura. And I gotta mention that Lao Gui is fast as hell. He may not be a goddamn badass like Lao Kalong, but he's super cool in terms of being the Terminator Ninja of the Like a Dragon series. Now, why did I say Lao Kalong was cooler? Well, you'll have to check out my analysis of him and my Tanomura File series. Anyway, back to Lao Gui. His theme is Arch Nemesis, and I find it to work perfectly as an intimidating track that seems to escalate up and down as the final battle progresses through his phases. Lao Gui is ultimately the closest we'll ever get to punching Sohei Dojima ourselves, and for all the events in the plot that transpired from Dojima hiring Lao Gui in the first place, right? The whole empty lot thing and all that jazz. Nonetheless, it's immensely satisfying to play as the Mad Dog himself and strike fear into what once was the deadliest hitman in Asia. Next is Kei Ibuchi. Kei Ibuchi. Ibuchi was the latest in a line of new age Yakuza family leaders in the early 2000s, one that emphasized the financial earning side of the Yakuza and running more like a standard business, or, well, I guess in his words, trying to evolve the criminal empire of the Tojo clan. At least, evolving as normal as criminals can get. Essentially, Ibuchi sees Majima's generation as a bunch of dinosaurs close to extinction, and only guys like him can salvage the ways of the past and forge a new one. Even if that means still scheming and getting his hands dirty like the old Yakuza already do. Same story, different coat of paint. Well, I guess history just repeats itself in new shades of colors. Nonetheless, Ibuchi can be seen as similar to guys like Mine or SAMOA, in terms of them representing new age Yakuza forging their own path. Of course, Ibuchi has about an ounce of the screen time those guys had, and he's relegated to a free game mode that was the Majima saga. Ibuchi may also pale in comparison to Majima, as in terms of being his own equivalent to a Ryuji Goda, and Ibuchi is ultimately just a somewhat interesting footnote to bridge the gap between Yakuza 1 and 2, posthumously of their original PS2 releases, since, the Kiwami era. Like, for instance, Ibuchi's sort of the callback to the original Takashima design, since he got a new likeness actor at Kiwami 2. You know how they did it, Takashima's older in Kiwami 2. Plus, Ibuchi joined the Yakuza in the story due to Takashima's involvement, so I suppose it was a deliberate callback after all, with Ibuchi kind of being a stand-in for that original Takashima design. Yakuza 2 is one of my favorite stories in the series, but Takashima is one of the elements I always forget, since Ryuji literally steals the scene from him. Anyway, the highlight of Ibuchi's fight is taking place in the Grand Club for all the Yakuza's era fan service, and in terms of chronological events, setting the tone for the upcoming Omi Tojo Clan War, that was the main overall backdrop for Yakuza 2's story. And his update with gunfire boss theme is pretty cool too. Not the coolest boss fight, and even if Majima's moveset in this game, you'll get the job done. And I always forget that the penultimate boss of the Majima saga was Ryota Kawamura, one of Majima's own Yakuza family members, so I think that is also an interesting thing to consider for this being a Majima story, how to fight one of his own men. Now, if Ibuchi tried to recruit, say, Nishida to do his dirty work instead of Kawamura, we all know the Majima saga would have ended in Chapter 1. Nishida would never betray his daddy Majima. At the end of the day, Ibuchi may not be the most fascinating final boss, but for a Majima story, I guess he at least had a pistol, so he kept the trend of Majima's final foes being some kind of weapon guy. And lastly, Raymond Law. Oh, Raymond Law. Similar to other Majima antagonists, Raymond may not have the most philosophical or deepest parallels as other main villains, but that's okay. Raymond instead is an absolute unit of greed and pirate plundering galore, dignified by his exploitation of others, whether it's his own ruler, Queen Michelle, Mortimer, or using the Yakuza's own greed to get in the way of a little boy trying to connect with his actual father. You see, Raymond Law is the culmination of the pirate life, where greed becomes that high you can't get enough of. You gotta get that high again and again and again. I mean, look at the final boss arena, it's all the gold. And when it comes to his duel with Majima, well, Majima wouldn't let the Pirate King take the dreams away of Noah and the rich family. Majima looking out for the little guy is classic Majima through and through. It's the same caring nature beneath his exterior that we saw with Makoto and Zero, and Majima willing to sacrifice himself in 5 because he knows that Haruka is more important to Kiryu than anything else in the universe. For all that the Mad Dog of Shimano howls, you know he'll always bite when a true jackass starts stomping on the lives of innocent people. As of others who know Samoa Joe from his wrestling career, I do wish that, as Raymond Law, he got to at least perform a few of his moves. I have no idea if it's because of some weird trademark reasons, or maybe both Joe and RGG just wanted to let him slip into the role of the Pirate King, but it would have been cool if there was just a little more to his final fight. Regardless, if you want to hear Samoa Joe's thoughts, go check out this live stream I found where he got interviewed. Pretty cool. He pretty much says that you should always play video games, so I guess you can quote Samoa Joe for that. Great guy. Now when it comes to the Raymond Law character, that's not to say there isn't any amazing spectacle in his boss battle though, for it's definitely the kind of visceral action you'd want in a final boss, and it does deliver on that front. Raymond's got several phases as well, being a weapons master with some memorable QTEs himself. Plus he's got 2 boss battle themes that grow on ya, named Gold Devourer and Unyielding Spirit. And for once you got to see a final boss actually perish. By that, I mean, I know we had a boss die in Yakuza 7, if you know what I mean, but here in Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, it's not emotional. Instead, it was just nice to see a boss get a brutal, over-the-top finisher for once. Sometimes you just gotta take a bad guy out, you know? And all in all, I think for us finally winning another Majima solo game after 10 years, in terms of Pirate Yakuza, I think some of the bosses were hit and miss, but ultimately, I think in terms of what the game was going for, yeah, now that I've let it simmer, I do like Raymond Law. He's just a big evil guy wearing just a plain t-shirt, and he's called the Pirate King, and he lives in a cave. And he betrays everybody else, like, it's Mr. Krabs. Majima had to fight Mr. Krabs for his final boss. Because anyway, if there's anything you take from my channel in this video, Majima fought Mr. Krabs, pretty much. So there you go. In conclusion, when you look back on Lao Gui, Kei Ibuchi, and Raymond Law as a series of villains made for one particular protagonist, you start to see some neat similarities and some clues as to why Majima's villains may come across different to the guys you see Kiryu or Ichiban fight. Majima's foes may not carry the super dramatic or concise narrative weight you may want every final Yakuza boss to have, but instead I encourage you to see these guys more so as purely cool villains that do, well, just that, be an obstacle for our Mad Dog while carving out their own place in the series. If there's one thing I've noticed, it's that these 3 villains are all practically pure evil because of Majima being the very guy he is. A hero who's done some rough things himself in the past, yet he doesn't gloss over them. For every hardship he's been through or enacted on another sticks with him, even if he doesn't need to mention it outright. Because all of his Mad Dog actions are both the crazy madman we love, and the melancholic, pained soul, who still wants to get to the top and be serious with his rock and roll, wink wink. Majima is as outlandish as he can be dead serious, meaning he's balanced with that Hanya Irizumi of his that is both fierce and mocking of his own foes. His villains, on the other hand, take themselves way too seriously in a world that will always laugh at one moment and suddenly break down in another moment. You gotta have that strength and shit. That wraps up this video, and I've been Mr. TDF. Thank you all greatly for watching. If you're a returning viewer, let me give you a gracious thanks of appreciation. Share my videos to Yakuza fans who need to be converted, and I'll see you in the next one. Remember, we build shit.